Oh, they noticed, didn't they? They saw it, the way you just stood there. Didn't flinch, didn't raise your voice, didn't even blink when they tried to humiliate you in front of everyone. And now they can't sleep because they're trying to figure out who you used to be, what you survived. What made you this bulletproof? Welcome back, you terrifyingly calm, unnervingly composed, dangerously unbothered warrior. Or should I say, welcome to the moment they realized they just poked something they shouldn't have. Because that reaction, or should I say that non-reaction, it wasn't weakness, it was warfare. The kind that doesn't need weapons. The kind that doesn't need words. The kind that makes grown adults question every single assumption they ever made about you. Let's rewind to that moment, shall we? The disrespect was loud, calculated, designed to break you in front of witnesses. They threw the insult like a grenade, expecting an explosion, expecting tears, expecting you to crumble or fight back or at least show them something. Anything that would prove you're just like everyone else. But what did you do? You smiled. Not a fake smile, not a nervous smile. A smile that said, I've survived worse than you could ever imagine, and you're not even a footnote in my story. You maintained eye contact, not aggressive, not submissive, just present, eerily present. And in that silence, in those 5 seconds that felt like 5 hours, you became a mystery they'll spend the next 5 years trying to solve. Here's what they don't understand, and here's what's eating them alive right now. Normal people react. Normal people defend themselves. Normal people either explode with rage or collapse with shame. But you did neither. You absorbed their disrespect like a sponge absorbs water, completely, totally, and then you just moved on. Like it never happened. Like they never happened. And that indifference, that composure, that's not something you learn from self-help books or motivational videos. That's trauma disguised as tranquility. That's survival skills mistaken for social grace. That's a past so heavy it made your present unbothered. They wanted a reaction, but what they got was a masterclass in emotional detachment from someone who's clearly been through something they couldn't comprehend. Now they're having theories. Oh yes, they're in group chats right now, dissecting that moment frame by frame. Did you see how they didn't even react? That's not normal. What do you think happened to them? Some are saying you're secretly dangerous, that you've got a dark past, that quiet people are always the ones you should fear. Others are saying you're broken inside, that you've been hurt so badly you don't feel anything anymore. And the rest are just scared, because they realize they can't manipulate someone who doesn't need their validation. They can't hurt someone who's already been destroyed and rebuilt themselves. They can't intimidate someone who's faced real monsters and survived. You became a ghost story before you even left the room. But let's talk about what that moment really meant, because this isn't about them anymore. This is about you. That calmness, that terrifying composure, it didn't come from a place of peace, did it? It came from a place of practice. Years of practice. Years of swallowing your pride, biting your tongue, absorbing blow after blow after blow until your nervous system just adapted. Until your brain learned that reacting costs more than it's worth. Until your soul decided that silence is the only language worth speaking to people who don't deserve your energy. You didn't choose to be this calm. You were trained to be this calm. Trained by betrayals that taught you trust is expensive. Trained by humiliations that taught you dignity is silent. Trained by losses that taught you attachment is a luxury you can't afford. They're wondering who you used to be. But here's the real question. Who did you have to become to survive? Because that version of you, the one who stands there unfazed while chaos erupts around you, that's not your natural state. That's your armor. That's the result of every single time you cried alone. Every single time you screamed into a pillow. Every single time you wanted to fight back but knew it would only make things worse. You learned that the loudest power is quiet. You learned that the strongest response is no response. You learned that the best revenge is becoming someone they can't decode, can't predict, can't hurt. And now you're walking around with a PhD in emotional warfare, and they're still in kindergarten throwing tantrums. Here's what's keeping them up at night, and trust me, it's keeping them up. They thought they knew you. They thought they had you figured out. The quiet one, the nice one, the one who doesn't cause problems, the one they could disrespect without consequences because you never fought back before. But that moment, that 5-second window where you just stood there absorbing their venom with the calm of someone who's immune to poison, that shattered their entire perception of you. Because now they're realizing you weren't quiet because you were weak. You were quiet because you were watching. You weren't nice because you were naive. You were nice because you chose mercy over what you're actually capable of. You weren't avoidant because you were scared. You were avoidant because you knew engagement was a waste of your evolution. And now the theories are getting wild, aren't they? Some think you're former military, trained to stay calm under pressure. Some think you grew up in chaos, so regular disrespect feels like a vacation compared to what you survived. Some think you're secretly calculating, planning something, waiting for the perfect moment to strike back. And the paranoid ones, they think you're just numb, broken beyond repair, a shell of a person who's been hurt so many times you don't even register pain anymore. But none of them are right. None of them understand the real truth. You're not any of those things. You're something far more dangerous. You're healed. Or at least, you're healing. And healed people don't need to prove anything. They don't need to defend themselves. They don't need to make others understand. They just exist, unbothered, untouchable, unbreakable. Let me paint you a picture of what they're seeing when they look at you now. They see someone whose eyes don't change when they're insulted, someone whose breathing doesn't quicken when they're attacked, someone whose posture doesn't shift when they're challenged. It's uncanny, it's unsettling. It's the kind of calm that makes people uncomfortable because it suggests you've seen things, survived things, conquered things they can't imagine. You're not playing the game they're playing. You're not even on the same board. You're operating from a dimension of existence they don't have access to, where ego doesn't matter, where opinions are just noise, where disrespect is just another Tuesday. And that makes you unpredictable. That makes you powerful. That makes you a problem they can't solve. But here's where it gets really interesting, because while they're theorizing about your past, they're missing what's happening right now. Every day you don't react, you're getting stronger. Every insult you absorb without flinching, you're building immunity. Every time they try to get under your skin and fail, you're proving to yourself that you're no longer the person who could be broken by words. You're not suppressing your emotions. You're not pretending to be okay. You're genuinely unbothered because you've already survived the worst thing that could happen to you. You've already lost everything, felt everything, endured everything. So what's a little disrespect from someone who doesn't even know your real story? What's a cheap insult from someone who's never walked through your specific brand of fire? It's nothing. Less than nothing. It's background noise in a life that's already been to war and came back victorious. They want to know your origin story so badly, don't they? They want the details, the trauma, the incident, the moment that transformed you from a regular person into this composed enigma. But you're never going to tell them, are you? Because your pain is not their entertainment. Your survival is not their curiosity project. Your past is not a story you owe to people who only noticed you when you stopped reacting to their nonsense. They think they deserve an explanation, but the truth is, they don't even deserve your time. They get the version of you that shows up, does what needs to be done, and leaves without attachment. They get the surface, the calm exterior, the unbothered demeanor. But the depths, the scars, the nights you spent rebuilding yourself piece by piece, that's yours. That's sacred. That's not for people who only care now because they can't figure you out. And let's be honest, they're not asking because they care about you. They're asking because your calmness threatens their chaos. Your composure exposes their instability. Your silence highlights their noise. When you refuse to play the drama game, when you refuse to feed into their provocations, when you refuse to give them the emotional reaction they're craving, you become a mirror. And what do they see in that mirror? They see their own insecurity, their own need for validation, their own desperate attempt to feel powerful by making others feel small. And it's not working on you. It hasn't worked on you. And the realization that they have no power over you, that's what's driving them insane. That's what's fueling these theories. That's what's making them obsessed with your past. Because if they can find out what broke you, maybe they can find out how to break you again. But here's the beautiful, poetic, devastating truth they're about to learn. You're not unbreakable because nothing bad ever happened to you. You're unbreakable because everything bad already happened to you. You're not calm because your life has been easy. You're calm because your life has been so catastrophically difficult that regular challenges don't even register anymore. You're not unbothered because you don't care. You're unbothered because you've already cared too much, lost too much, suffered too much, and survived anyway. You're the result of every betrayal that taught you self-reliance, every heartbreak that taught you self-love, every failure that taught you resilience, every loss that taught you detachment. You're a walking, breathing, living example of what happens when someone refuses to let their past define their present. And that terrifies people who are still prisoners of their own stories. They're watching you now, closer than they ever did before. Every interaction is being analyzed. Every response is being scrutinized. Every moment of calmness is being questioned. How do they do it? What's their secret? Why aren't they affected? And you know what the funniest part is? You're not even trying. You're not performing composure. You're not faking indifference. You're not putting on an act. This is just who you are now. This is what survival looks like on the other side. This is what healing looks like when you do it in silence, without an audience, without applause, without anyone validating your progress. You rebuilt yourself in the dark, and now you're walking in the light. And people can't understand how something so bright came from something so broken. They don't know that diamonds are made under pressure. They don't know that steel is forged in fire. They don't know that the calmest waters are often the deepest. They just see the surface, and they're terrified of what's underneath. Let's talk about the specific moment again, because I want you to understand just how powerful it was. When they disrespected you, they were expecting a show. They gathered an audience. They chose their words carefully. They delivered the blow with confidence, with cruelty, with the full intention of embarrassing you. And for a split second, everyone held their breath, waiting for your reaction. This was supposed to be your breaking point. This was supposed to be the moment you finally snapped, finally showed emotion, finally proved you're human like everyone else. But instead, you gave them nothing. Not anger, not sadness, not even acknowledgement. You looked at them the way someone looks at a child throwing a tantrum, with a mixture of pity and boredom. And then you just continued with whatever you were doing, as if they were a minor inconvenience, a fly buzzing around that's not even worth swatting away. That moment changed everything, didn't it? Because in that moment, you established a new hierarchy. You showed them that their words have no weight, their opinions have no value. Their attempts to hurt you have no effect. You stripped them of their power without saying a single word. You defeated them without engaging in battle. You won without even acknowledging there was a competition. And that's the kind of victory that echoes. That's the kind of power move that gets talked about for years. That's the kind of response that makes people realize you're operating on a completely different level. They were playing checkers, trying to take you off the board, but you were playing chess. And you've been 10 moves ahead this entire time. They just didn't know it until that moment. Now they're scrambling to regain control, to regain relevance, to regain some kind of reaction from you. They're trying harder, being more provocative, more aggressive, more desperate. But here's what they don't understand. The more they try, the more obvious it becomes that they need you to react. They need your emotion. They need your attention. They need your validation. Because without it, they're just shouting into a void. They're just performing for an audience of one, and that one person isn't even watching. You've already moved on. You're already focused on your own growth, your own goals, your own peace. And that indifference, that genuine lack of interest in their drama, that's the ultimate disrespect. That's the real power move. Not fighting back, but not caring enough to fight in the first place. Let me tell you what they're really afraid of, because it's not just your calmness. It's what your calmness represents. It represents someone who's been through something so transformative, so intense, so life-altering that normal social dynamics don't apply anymore. It represents someone who's had to develop survival mechanisms that most people will never need. It represents someone who's learned to regulate their emotions at a master level, because their life depended on it. When someone can stand there, completely still, completely composed, while being verbally attacked, it means they've developed a level of emotional control that comes from necessity, not choice. It means they've had to learn how to stay calm in situations far more dangerous than a public insult. It means they've got a past that prepared them for anything. And that's what's keeping them up at night. The unknown, the mystery, the realization that they're dealing with someone whose story they don't know, whose limits they can't test, whose breaking point they can't find, because maybe, just maybe, you don't have one anymore. You've already been broken. You've already been destroyed. You've already hit rock bottom so hard that you bounced back stronger. There's nothing they can take from you that hasn't already been taken. There's nothing they can say to you that you haven't already said to yourself. There's nothing they can do to you that's worse than what you've already survived. And that makes you untouchable. That makes you dangerous. That makes you someone they should have never underestimated in the first place. But let's get even deeper, because I want you to really understand the psychological warfare you just unleashed without even trying. When you stayed calm, you denied them satisfaction. You denied them the ego boost that comes from successfully hurting someone. You denied them the social points that come from winning a public confrontation. You denied them the story they could tell later about how they put you in your place. Instead, you gave them confusion. You gave them doubt. You gave them a moment they'll replay in their minds over and over, trying to figure out where they went wrong, trying to understand why their attack didn't land, trying to comprehend how someone could be so unaffected by something that should have devastated them. You turned their moment of triumph into their moment of existential crisis. And here's the part that's really messing with their heads. They can't figure out if you're stronger than they thought, or if you're more damaged than they realized. Is your calmness confidence, or is it numbness? Is your silence power, or is it pain? Are you untouchable because you've healed, or are you untouchable because you've broken? They can't tell. And that ambiguity, that uncertainty, that's what's driving them crazy. Because if you're strong, then they're outmatched. But if you're broken, then they're monsters. Either way, they lose. Either way, you win. Either way, that moment exposed them far more than it could have ever exposed you. They showed everyone watching that they're willing to publicly humiliate someone, but you showed everyone that you're above it. You showed everyone that you're operating from a place they can't reach. You showed everyone that you're built different. Let's talk about the aftermath, because this is where it gets really interesting. After that moment, things shifted. People started looking at you differently. Not with pity, not with concern, but with respect, with curiosity, with a hint of fear. Because anyone who can stand there and absorb disrespect like it's oxygen, anyone who can maintain composure while being attacked, anyone who can smile in the face of cruelty, that's not someone you want to mess with. That's someone who's clearly been through something. That's someone who's clearly learned something. That's someone who's clearly evolved beyond the petty dynamics that control most people's lives. And now you're not just the quiet one anymore. You're not just the nice one anymore. You're the one with a story. You're the one with a past. You're the one who makes people wonder, who makes people theorize, who makes people nervous, just by existing in the same space. And the person who disrespected you, They're feeling it the most. They thought they were establishing dominance. They thought they were showing everyone how irrelevant you are.